We're going beyond the podium in election 2024, talking with the candidates running for the 8th Congressional District seat in Northeast Wisconsin. The Democratic candidate is Kristin Lyerly, an OB/GYN doctor. The Republican candidate is Tony Wied, a former business owner. They are looking to fill the seat vacated by Mike Gallagher.
Well, Tony Wied, thanks for joining us here.
We spoke with Wied and Lyerly separately, asking them the same questions to help you, the voter, understand where they stand on the issues.
Dr. Kristin Lyerly, thanks for taking the time to answer a few questions for us. To start out with, for those who may have not been paying attention to the 8th Congressional District race, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you ended up running for Congress?
It's a very long story, Mark, but I'll keep it short. I am a mom. I'm a 6th generation Wisconsinite, and I'm an OB/GYN doctor who grew up right here in the district, born and raised in Kaukauna. In fact, my family has been here in this district for 6 generations. And I decided to run for Congress, frankly, because I just can't take care of my patients anymore. They don't have access to the care that they need, and doctors are afraid to provide them with care, specifically when it comes to reproductive health care. Of course, health care is a problem for most Wisconsinites, most Americans. So it's not just about reproductive health care, it's about all of it and so much more.
Give us a little bit of your background and why it is you're in this race today.
Well, I was raised right here. I grew up in Ashwaubenon. I went to public schools through 8th grade and then decided to go to a Catholic high school, which is Notre Dame Academy, back in the early 90s. I'm aging myself. I then decided to go to another Catholic school for college called St. Norbert College right here in De Pere. There I met my wife and we got married a year later, and we ended up having 4 children, 4 sons. And we got into the convenience store gas station business. And so we had very busy time in our 20s and 30s. Of course, my number one job always was to be a good spouse, a good husband, and of course, a great father. And I worked really hard at that. And we were very busy and consumed with our business for my 20s and 30s and into our 40s, running a 24/7 operation. And we were very blessed 2 years ago to be able to sell our family business that my wife and I ran for all those years. I've always loved this country. I've always had a yearning to serve in some way, shape, or form. My grandfather was a World War II vet, Purple Heart, and I just love that patriotism that he had. And so I've always wanted to serve it. And with the love of the country, I had about a year where I was able to really reflect and pray on what it is that we can do in our life. And we were also empty nesters at that same time. And I was just continuing to ask for a sign and what is our next step to really make an impact in this world. And with Mike Gallagher deciding not to run for Congress in February of this year, I knew right then and there that this was my calling, and it's been a great opportunity.
Okay, well, let's get to some issues. We've spoken with some people here in Northeast Wisconsin about the southern border. Some say it matters to them, while others say they don't really feel it has a bearing on them living here in Wisconsin. We do know that migrant crossings are currently at their lowest level since 2020. If you take office, what will be your approach to solving the immigration problem, and how would you plan to then pay for it?
Well, the border, when I'm around in all 11 counties and having conversations with folks, the border is a main priority for people. And everybody really is in a border state. And maybe Wisconsin doesn't have the amount maybe that other states do right now of illegal migrants that are coming across the border. It is a big concern for people. And right now, during this administration, we have seen, and we really don't know the numbers, but upwards to 15, even more than 15 million people that have crossed our border illegally. And it is a crisis. And during the Trump administration, we saw a major reduction in the crossings of illegal migrants, and I think it is a big concern. And meeting with folks that are in the sheriff's department and police departments and otherwise here in this district, it is becoming a larger concern with having to deal with crime and the drug flow from the cartels and various issues. So I'm very concerned with it. It is something that is a priority for me. I think we need to finish the border wall. I also believe in the Remain in Mexico policy, which doesn't allow for folks to cross the border and then apply for asylum, which is what is happening right now. I also think we need to fund properly the ICE and Border Patrol agents to make sure that we have a sealed border. We cannot have a country without control of our border.
And how are we going to pay for this?
Well, that's a big concern. I think that is something that we need to do. This is part of our job in the federal legislature and in the House of Representatives to make sure, again, to have a secure country, we have to have a secure border.
What will be your approach to solving the immigration problem, and how would you plan to pay for it?
There's no question that we've got a crisis at the border and we need a solution. And in fact, there is a solution. It is just waiting for people who have the political courage to pass it. It was written by some of the most conservative and some of the most liberal members of the Senate, and it would provide for more guards at the border and a more efficient path to citizenship, something that would bring immigrants up to this part of the country so that they could work in places like the meat packing plants and on the farms where we need help. But we haven't been able to get that done because of politics, unfortunately. That's a bill that I would be very interested in being involved with getting across the line. And how would we pay for it? The same way we pay for everything else. Just fiscal responsibility, ensuring that we are prioritizing the things that are most important to the American people.
Well, according to the Pew Research Center, 63% of Americans say that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. One presidential candidate wants to restore Roe v. Wade as federal law. The other wants individual states to decide if and when abortions are legal. What is your view on abortion in America?
Hey, I'm so glad you asked that question, Mark, because as an OBGYN doctor, no one knows better than me and my patients that we are the only people who can make our own personal medical decisions. And we have to have the freedom, whether we are women or men, old or young, we have to be able to make our own personal medical decisions. Abortion is something that is not that black and white issue that politicians want you to think it is. Abortion is complicated. It's healthcare. There are aspects of miscarriage management and fertility treatment and definitely complicated pregnancies that are all tied up into this issue. So again, abortion is healthcare, and we all deserve the freedom to make our personal healthcare decisions.
If I could follow up, at what week of pregnancy would you say there should be restrictions in place?
You know, again, Mark, I don't think that we can put a number on it because every pregnancy is different, and every person who comes to the table with a complicated pregnancy problem is different. You can't legislate these things. You know, at what point in cancer care would you decide that you weren't going to offer chemotherapy or radiation therapy? At what point in a heart failure diagnosis are you going to deny someone the care that they need and deserve? These are deeply individualized situations that require not only your own personal feelings, but the counsel of a physician, the counsel of your faith leaders, your family members, your support system. No one can legislate these issues for us. We have to make these decisions for ourselves.
All right. What is your view on abortion in America?
Well, my wife and I have 4 children, and I can tell you that it is the greatest joy of our life having children. The Supreme Court, though, did make the decision recently, and it is back in the state's hands like it was before the previous decision. So I believe wholeheartedly it is a states' right issue and not something that we deal with in the House of Representatives.
Then you're saying you have no issue with individual states allowing abortion in one state and the next state over not allowing abortion. You don't think that there's going to be a problem with, some women may have rights in one state and not in the next state?
Well, again, I think the federal government should be doing less. I think the federal government has gotten too big and is handling too many issues right now. More power needs to go back to the states, even in additional issues other than this, and following the 10th Amendment. So again, I think people here need to decide. The people of Wisconsin should make that decision.
Okay. On the economy, the presidential candidates have put forth several ideas and proposals to help ease inflation. We'd like to go through a few of those and get your response to those. Will they work? Why or why not? And do you support them? First off, a federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries. Kroger executive had recently admitted to price gouging during the pandemic. What's your thought?
Well, I think these are Marxist, socialist type policies, and I think Kamala Harris has proposed these types of things. They don't work. They've been proven not to work in other countries, and I would hate to see us go down that path of having policies like that. I believe in free and fair markets, and I think we need to open up additional competition to make sure that we keep prices low. But continuing to talk about that rhetoric of putting ceilings on prices will really hurt our businesses and hurt our economy. And again, I think we need to shy away from those types of policies.
First of all, a federal ban on price gouging for food and groceries has been considered. A Kroger executive has admitted in an FTC hearing to price gouging during the pandemic. Your thoughts?
Well, we know inflation is real, and we know that prices went up. That's the number one thing that I'm hearing from people all across the region. Prices went up, groceries are too expensive, gas is too expensive. Inflation has gotten better. We're in the zone now, but the prices haven't come down. Yet corporate profits are at an all-time high. So yes, I do believe that we need to ensure that we are protecting folks from these high prices and making sure that everyone can afford their groceries, their gas, and the things that they need in order to live a meaningful life.
Wisconsin doesn't place a tax on Social Security benefits. What about eliminating the federal income tax on Social Security benefits? And how would you make up the loss of revenue?
Yeah, I'm very interested in that potential solution. And what I would love to see is more investment by the wealthy, more investment by corporations to make up the gap, ensuring that folks who have been paying into Social Security our entire lives, this is something that people are counting on. And it is really scary for folks who are approaching that retirement age to think that Social Security may not be there for them, or maybe something that they are going to need to wait longer to take advantage of. So we have to protect Social Security in its current state, and we have to ensure that it is going to be soluble for a long time. So I'm very interested in pursuing lots of creative options to make sure that these benefits are in place.
Wisconsin doesn't place a tax on Social Security benefits at this time. What about eliminating the federal income tax on Social Security benefits? And how would the loss of revenue be made up if that were the case?
Well, I'm always going to be in favor of lowering taxes. I think the money really is in the people's hands, and it should be. And I think any opportunity we have to lower the tax burden on the people here in District 8, I'm going to be in favor of. You know, situations like that, I would have to take a really hard look at it and fully understand the ramifications of that. But again, I'm always going to be in favor of keeping more money in people's pockets.
There's been a lot of talk about expanding tariffs. You've been a businessman, and the idea of who actually pays for these tariffs. Do you support additional tariffs, and how do you see them helping or hurting the American consumers?
Well, I think this comes down to free and fair trade, and I think as a country we need to have strong leadership. This current administration clearly isn't showing the leadership that it needs to, and I will always be in favor of bringing more jobs back to America. And I think smart tariffs can be a great tool to use in order to have that leverage and strength to negotiate those free and fair trade deals, again, in order to bring jobs back here to the United States.
But who pays the tariff? I mean, essentially, is it the American consumer end up footing that bill?
Well, I think it's a broader issue, and again, I think we need to grow our economy. I'm very interested in doing what we need to do to grow our economy in this country, reduce inflation. And again, I think smart tariffs are a great tool to make sure that goods aren't being produced in China and in Mexico and those types of things in order to get those jobs right back here. And I think that's what really will grow this economy.
Okay. There's been a lot of talk about expanding tariffs. Do you support additional tariffs, and how do you see them helping or hurting American consumers?
Tariffs can be a very useful tool, but they have to be used with surgical precision. If you use tariffs too often or too commonly or too broadly, you actually end up causing prices to go up. And it ends up becoming more of a tax on regular consumers. So although tariffs can be very helpful and effective, generally and broadly, they are not a great solution to what we've been seeing here recently.
want to go back to Social Security for a second. Social Security payroll tax is capped at around $168,000 in earnings. Now, earnings over that are not included in the payroll tax currently. To ensure the solvency of Social Security benefits, would you support eliminating or raising that cap? Why or why not?
Yeah, I would really like to look into that solution as well. I think that it makes sense. That cap has been in place for a long time, but I don't want to commit to anything without understanding all of the potential unintended consequences. So that is something that seems to make sense to me, but before committing, I need to know a little bit more information about how it would affect folks.
All right. Social Security payroll tax is capped at around $168,000 currently on earnings. Earnings over that are not included in the payroll tax. To ensure the solvency of Social Security benefits, would you support either eliminating that cap or extending it?
Well, look, the Social Security is something that I'm very passionate about, and I think we need to do everything in our power, and I will, to make sure that people continue to get the benefits that they have contributed to over their working years in life. So I'll always do everything I can to make sure that Social Security is and will stay into effect. I'm not in favor of raising taxes. However, I am in favor of reducing spending at the federal level. Every single year, we're going further into debt, over $3 trillion. Every 100 days, our country is going into debt, over $1 trillion. And that is what is causing this inflation. That is the issue, and I think we need to continue to find ways to reduce the spending at the federal level.
More than 250,000 Wisconsinites have so far signed up for the Affordable Care Act to get their medical coverage. There's been a lot of talk over the years about replacing the Affordable Care Act or making it better, different proposals. What do you see as the future of the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I've been in a situation as a business owner, a small family business that my wife and I ran. We offered health insurance to our team, so I've been on that side of it, and I continue to see the rise in the prices of premiums that we offered to our team members and that I paid for our own health insurance. I've also now been in a situation where I'm on the Affordable Care Act and providing for me for my health insurance, and I continue to see a rise in premiums and less payments from my insurance companies. So it is something that I'm very interested in. I think we need to, I would never do anything to pull that, but I would be in favor of reducing costs for people in some way, and I think we need to take a hard look at it.
Well, more than 250,000 Wisconsinites have signed up for the Affordable Care Act to get medical coverage. There's been a lot of talk over the years of replacing the Affordable Care Act or making it better. What do you see as the future of the Affordable Care Act?
I'm on the Affordable Care Act, Mark. As an independent contractor who is currently at work, this is how I get my health insurance, and it's how millions of Americans are able to get health insurance. Here in this country, we have the most expensive health care in the world, yet our outcomes are amongst the poorest, especially for moms and babies, amongst the poorest of all peer countries. We have to ensure that people have access to health care, and the Affordable Care Act was a huge step forward in making that happen. So I support the Affordable Care Act. I've been very vocal about my support for the Affordable Care Act, and frankly, I would like to see it expanded.
The current Congress was one of the least productive in U.S. history in terms of the number of bills it was able to pass, due in part to partisan politics. Both you and your opponent are new to holding political office and the demands of a political party. What makes you more qualified to represent Northeast Wisconsin, and how will you help to get more done in Washington?
People are so tired of this division, and they're so tired of having a government that isn't working for them. It is incumbent upon us as leaders to work together and to find that common ground so that we can create solutions for the people of Wisconsin. And I have a history of doing this. I have a history of coming together over tough problems, even things like abortion care and health care, and finding that common ground and moving out, working out from there. I do this every day in the office with my patients. When people come to see me, they don't tell me I come from this faith tradition, or I'm a Democrat or a Republican. They say, I have a problem, and we diagnose what that problem is, and we figure out how we're going to solve it in the way that works best for them. It's really not any different in Congress. We've got to diagnose the problem. We've got to figure out what our resources are, what everyone brings to the table, and move forward. We have to move forward. That's what the people of Northeast Wisconsin need and deserve.
The last Congress was one of the least productive in U.S. history in terms of the number of bills that they were able to pass there, in large part due to partisan politics. Both you and your opponent are relatively new to politics and to the demands of your political parties as well. What makes you more qualified to represent Northeast Wisconsin, and how will you get more done in Washington?
Well, I've been in small business my entire life as the owner and operator, and I know how difficult it is to run a business. I've signed the fronts of paychecks. I've had to take out personal loans and business loans with personal guarantees, where if my business didn't go well, I would lose my house, I would lose everything, and we were always at risk. And I've spent a lot of time in our business, and my wife and I, in going through our budgets and going line by line in our budgets and making sure that we were keeping our expenses down and reducing the expense that we had in our business. So I have a lot of experience in doing that, and from a fiscal responsibility. Plus, I've also had a lot of experience in leading teams, hiring people, and making sure that they had a great place to work. I'm a team player. I played sports. I played college football. I love being on teams, and the House of Representatives is a team sport. So I'm very good at bringing people together in order to do what's right for the people of District 8.
All right. Johnny Wied, we appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, Dr. Kristin Lyerly, we do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Mark.